What is up? We're live. What's going on? A little impromptu Mighty Rewind podcast tonight. And I had a couple people ask me to kind of go live, just I guess to talk about things, maybe ask some questions. But regardless, what is going on to everyone out there in the YouTube community on a Friday night here on the East Coast and everywhere out there? Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend, the start of the weekend, right? That's what we all look forward to all week long. So to me, I'm just kind of relaxing. It's been a rough 3 months for me. I'm not gonna lie with my regular job, and I got one more week to go, and then I'm gonna be taking some time off, and I can't wait. I'm not lying to you guys. January 20th cannot come soon enough for me. So I'm dealing with a little bit of a throat issue, as you guys might hear, but other than that, we are good to go. I actually had a friend of mine just reach out to me right before we went live here. He sent some books over to CGC, and they kind of made a stupid mistake on a couple of them, which I think is pretty cool, but pretty upsetting at the same time. But either way, we're going to check that out. He gave me the okay to go ahead and show you the book so you guys can see for yourself what CGC actually did. But seems to be same old at CGC, and we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. So I'm going to let the people kind of flow in a little bit. You know, ask any questions they might have, say hello, just join me. As always, whenever I do a Rewind podcast live, I always say if anybody wants to jump on here and have a conversation with me live on screen, the link to jump on is in the chat. So do not be afraid. If you guys want to do that, you are more than welcome to. Okay. So I have one person right here. The button did not work. Gordon Sisk. I'm not sure what we're talking about here. Does that mean the Restream button? Is that what you're talking about? That that I'm putting on the screen to get into the chat? I'm not sure. Regardless, we're here live, like I said, and if you want to jump on in the chat, you're more than welcome to. But one thing I want to throw out there tonight that I thought this might be a different show. Obviously, we'll talk comics, we'll talk collectibles, we'll answer any questions you guys might have, any topics you want to bring up. But the one thing I wanted to talk about tonight, believe it or not, is I would like to know who your inspiration is. Do you have an inspiration, not just in comics and collectibles, but in your life? Do you look up to someone, or maybe you share the same mindset? People have motivated you throughout the years, and you've kind of taking your life in the same direction that they have, and you want to kind of push yourself maybe the way they pushed themselves, and you have you know some relation to that. I want to talk about that a little tonight, and I want to give you a couple of people who I look up to and kind of have the same kind of mindset as them. And that's the word I want to use, is mindset. So I want to say hello to a couple people who are in the chat, and then we'll get into the CGC faux pas that the buddy of mine sent over to me. Gordon Sis, like I mentioned, is here. Easyverse NYC, what is going on, my friend? I caught your video that you guys did. I don't know if it went live today or it went live previously about the blind bag fiasco stuff. I did catch that. John B and 5588. Greetings from the Windy City. Go the Bears. I got to tell you, I didn't think Ben Johnson was going to be that good of a coach, but he made me eat my words. He's been fantastic. And I love coaches who are hard on their players and expect the best. So we'll get into that when we talk about inspiration and motivation, like I talked about tonight, who I kind of want to have that conversation and ask everybody out there. So hello, John, and thank you for joining me tonight. Gordon says the extremely satisfied button. I love that, brother. Thank you. Alva Flash. If Ultimate Comics Spider-Man 15 and 16.1 from 2011 had newsstand variants, can't seem to get a straight answer anywhere. I do not know either, brother. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one. I'm not a huge modern guy, but I will say this. I'm going to say no to that question, but I do not know for for the life of me. If I go to my LCS, I can ask them. They're very knowledgeable on that kind of stuff. So if I remember, next time I go there, I will ask them that, and they might be able to answer that one for you. Murph, what is going on? He says his inspiration has always been his dad. Good topic. That's awesome, brother. I think that's a great answer. I think maybe to a lot of men growing up in their lives, their inspiration is their father. So that's awesome. Murph, I am looking forward to seeing you at King Con. I am hoping to get there this year. I'm going to be there probably only in the morning because I know we talked about this. I coach my youngest basketball team, which the season starts tomorrow. We're looking forward to that. But usually May 7th, when King Kong is the start of the playoffs, but it's usually in the afternoon. So I'm going to be there in the morning. That's the hope, at least. Gordon says, thank you for this video. Anytime, brother. I'm going to put this on the actual podcast today just because of the topic we're going to cover. So I will do a little editing as well. Peter DeLuca, welcome aboard, brother. He says, I currently own a couple of giant size X-Men slab by CGC that will be sold off at some point. Do you think now is the time to sell, or is it definitely a book to hold off on? Appears that prices are continuing to trend up for it. Uh, to me, I've said this for the better part of 2 years, in that I'm willing, if I'm going to own a book, especially a big book like Giant Size X-Men 1, I want to be a long-term holder. I think, I mean, depending when you bought it. If you bought it pre-COVID and you did well on it, go ahead, sell it if you don't want to hold on to the book. But if you bought it like not too long ago, I don't think you're going to do that great on it, considering you know, I don't think really prices have done anything over the past year and a half or so, except come down. Maybe you get a pop here and there with some of the X-Men stuff that reappears. But with that book specifically, it's all presentation, right? It's the colors, it's the whiteness on the books, it's the spine, right? Because it's a thicker book as well. So that is my answer to that question. It all depends really what you're into the books for. Izzy says he's having dinner now, but I'll jump if you're still on when I'm done. Yeah, take your time, brother. Like I said, my topics tonight are, I want to talk about the CGC thing that my friend just sent me that we'll cover for a little bit, just because this is such a ridiculous thing. And he actually told me that this occurred on somebody else's YouTube channel that they showed as well recently, which I did not catch. But these are also two different books as well that we'll talk about in a little bit. It seems everybody is looking forward to King Kong this year, as they should. I'm going to start off by saying this. One, the promoter of the show, Greg, does a great job with it. One of the best shows, if not the best, smaller or mid-size, I should say, Comic-Con on the East Coast. Like, everybody will talk about Heroes Con being the ultimate show on the East Coast, but that is such on a larger scale than King Kong. King Kong is a very intimate show. It's a mid-size show, so it's not small by any means, but it has the best dealers, in my opinion, on the East Coast. I don't want to say everybody knows everybody, but it really is a collection of all of us from the East Coast that kind of gather at this convention. Whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on YouTube, whether you do a podcast, all of us kind of congregate there and kind of hang out for the day, which is a really, really great thing, which makes the show even better. But besides that, they have great books, great dealers, great prices. This year, I believe there's going to have some other stuff as well, some Pokemon stuff like that, which I've seen Greg promote on their IG page. If you're not following King Kong on their IG page, please do so. So if you're in Jersey, where the show is, in Eastland, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, even Pennsylvania, they're within driving distance. We actually had what's his face over from Massachusetts. Why is his name Mike? Lunch Money Comics was there last year. Of course, last year I couldn't make it, but Mike, I don't know if he's coming down this year. I hope he does, because I would like to see him again. But he came down from Massachusetts last year, and he said he had a ball as well. So it's a great show on the East Coast. Want to say hello to G Majors 2237 AF15 expensive. Would you buy one now? G Majors, I'm going to ask you this question: are you a Spider-Man fan? Do you want to hold on to the book for the long term? If the answer to those two questions is yes, I'm always a buyer of that book. That is the ultimate comic book, in my opinion. Yes, there are more books out there that are more expensive, more desirable, obviously a lot rarer. But the main thing is this: everybody wants to own an AF-15. The most popular character out there in comics, in my opinion, is Spider-Man. It's always desirable. Someone always will buy it. I don't think you will lose your shirt if you bought one right now, unless you bought an inferior copy or you had to just sell just to get out, right? If you just wanted to get out of the book real quick, AF-15s, in my opinion, will always sell. So my advice is buy the best copy you can. And when I say that, I don't mean the grade. I mean the best copy you can, with the least Marvel chipping, without any foxing, Color's got to be decent, and it could still be a low grade. Okay, I bought a friend of mine bought an AF-15 through me. He financed one through me that has great eye appeal. So, it's all about the deal you can get on the copy that you want, and I'll put it that way. So again, his next part was, if so, what grade? I own a 2.5, brother. So my copy is not like the greatest looking copy. It actually has some writing on it. On somebody signed their name, but then Stanley signed his name over it, so it's not that bad. That's why I bought it. So, but it's a great looking copy, and that's what really matters. So the topic is, we're going to take a look at a few books that a friend sent me that CGC screwed up, and then the topic is your inspiration in your life. Now, like Murph said, his inspiration could have been a parent, could have been a loved one, could have been anyone in your life that kind of have guided you into who you are today in a way. And I'm going to give you mine, and they're weird because they're three people. You may not know any of them. I think most of you at least know one of them. So Izzy says he'll be at King Kong and Garden State Comic Fest in 2 weeks. I'm not hitting up Garden State Comic Fest this year. The winter one really hasn't been great for me over the past couple of years that I have gone. So I'm not doing that. I did go to the summer one this year, which was okay. But for me, I always look forward to King Kong because of the camaraderie, the people there. I sold there a couple of years ago. I set up as a vendor. And like I said, some of the best dealers on the East Coast will be there, with always having great books to boot. So King Kong, Peter, you're in Westchester, brother? I work for now in White Plains, New York, brother. So you're in Westchester. You have to go to King Kong. If you live in Westchester, I know you probably know the Pressable Defects. Those guys are also in Westchester. They come down for this show every year. I'm assuming they are as well again this year. So yes, it is in Eastland, New Jersey. Stay tuned to the channel because Greg over at King Kong sponsored me for a month before the show. So we're going to run a bunch of stuff about King Kong before the show hits. So all the information will be given there. But it's Eastland, New York. I'm sorry, Eastland, New Jersey. Excuse me. May 7th. It's a Saturday morning. So, and it goes throughout the day. So I'll be there in the morning. I think they open at 10 o'clock, and the tickets are cheap as well online. So Izzy says, did I hear about the big sale that happened today? Of course I did. How could everybody miss that? The highest selling comic of all time, Action Comics #1, the Nicolas Cage comic that he had in a 9.0, bought by Comic Connect, Metropolis Comics, for $15 million. What can you say, baby? Swag put out a video today talking about it, and I had to make a small comment and said, just consider who bought that book, okay? Obviously the rare of the rare books will always get sold. And that is, I believe, I don't know if it's the highest graded copy. I shouldn't say that. I don't know. In my opinion, it has to be Blue Label. I would think it is, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Regardless, 15 million bucks. So the rare of the rare will always sell. And the most beloved will always sell, like I said before, AF-15. So we'll leave it at that. Peter says he's seen the defects driving down Central Ave many times. You honk the horn. I'm trying to get the guys to come on a podcast with me and talk about it, but they've been busy. I know Matt's got the baby at home, and Butch says he's got a promotion at work, so they're a little busy right now. But I got to keep on those guys to kind of get here and get on the podcast because we miss them, right? We always enjoy their shows. Jonathan Uribe will be at King Kong too. Absolutely. Father, son, vintage cards and comics. I mean, there's always a ton of great guests there as well. So, like I said, stay tuned for the channel. We're going to cover all of it in the month of February. So at the end of this month, we'll start into that. But let's get into talking about these books from CGC. Let me see if I can get the screen share going. There we go. There we go. All right. So check this out. Now, can you guys see this? Obviously, it's an Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is a beautiful copy. First appearance of the Vulture, Adrian Toomes. Now, check out the label. I don't know if I could zoom in here. I don't think I can. But what I will say is this. Actually, maybe I can. Can I? No, that's the biggest it's going to get. So what I will say is this, is that top right-hand corner, it might be a little blurry for you guys to see, but it says origin and first appearance of the Sandman, William Baker, first appearance of Betty Brant. So obviously, that is not the case, right? This is the first appearance of Adrian Toomes, the Vulture. So wild. Also says Amazing Spider-Man 4 at the top of the label. So CGC obviously must have swapped this label with another book. So let's go ahead and show such book. And here we have it. Let me go back to full screen here. Can I do that? There you go. This one says Amazing Spider-Man 2 in a 6.5 with white pages. First appearance of the Vulture, Adrian Toomes, and the terrible Tinkerer, Phineas Mason. So check this out. So this obviously is the ASM4 in the ASM2 label. So I'm assuming that this 6.5 is supposed to be in the ASM2, while the ASM2 that is in the ASM4 label is supposed to be a 6.0. I just found this to be incredible that CGC is still making mistakes like this. Very, very wild to me. So, like, and these are high value dollar books. They're not like chump change. Like a 6.0, ASM4, it's got to be thousands and thousands of dollars. Same with the two, right? So, it's going to be hard to say whether they screwed up the grade entirely. Like, so is this obviously the ASM2 is the 6.5 and the ASM4 is the 6.0, but it's hard to say that, did they print the wrong grade on the label and then put the label in the wrong case? Or is the grade on the label correct and they just swapped the labels in the case? So we don't know, but I'm assuming that the grades are on the correct label and they just swap the labels in the case. So for anybody watching this on the actual rewind, not live, this is wild to me that this could even happen. And they were told me, the buddy who sent this to me said that Bryce Comics just showed basically the exact same thing with two other books, that they were also swapped with the labels as well. So not too sure. This obviously is not the first time that we've seen this from CGC, but I don't know, man. To send high value dollar books in and have shit like this happen, that would just irk the daylights out of me. There's also one other thing he did show me. Okay. Let me see if I can go big on here as well. So he sent in his obviously Secret Wars #8, came back a 9.8. And again, you're not going to be able to see this because the screen doesn't get that big. But with that said, on the actual label, it says newsstand, but which it is obviously. But inside this book is a Mark Jewelers variant. You can see it on the graders notes in the CGC, notes area if you go to their website. But on the book itself, the label does not notate this book as a Mark Jewelers insert, which to me is again another mistake. Another he has to send all these three books back in to be fixed. Now, obviously, guys, mistakes are made. I know they're made. Obviously, they're only human. These people, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to have issues with certain things. I understand that, but how often does this happen? Right? It happens way too often for it to keep happening. Right? So whatever their workflow is there at CGC has to be fixed. I don't care what anybody says. This has gone on long enough where we have these mistakes being made. The workflow needs to be changed. And coming from someone who actually work in an industry where they rely on workflow to kind of get what they need done, it's just crazy to me that CGC has not changed any of the things that they do to provide and prevent these mistakes from happening. So again, CGC, I'm not killing you, but I'm saying to you right now, get somebody in there to create a better workflow for you guys so these kind of mistakes don't happen, especially in high value dollar books like a 9.8 Secret Wars with a Mark Jewelers. That's not chump change either, man. Thousands of thousands of dollars and a 9.8. So again, how much is this total submission worth that this guy actually has to go ahead and send these books back to CGC now to get this stuff corrected? Damages could occur sending these books back. We all know that. We've seen that as well. So he's also taking a risk in doing so. So shout out to CGC. Please fix some of the stuff. And I'd love to hear what all you guys are thinking about this. So let me check the comments right now. O'Hale says, "What's up, bro?" Oh, he said this is this is a friend of mine from Instagram. This is Infected, by the way. Chef, what's going on here, brother? He says, "Hello, Lawrence. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to Izzy." Murph, hello, can I pee? Yes, by all means. Go to the bathroom, brother. He says, can he talk to someone in quality control? I'll hold. Yeah, dude. I mean, this is years now with some of this stuff, right? Years with some of this stuff. Like it's simple stuff too. That could be corrected with workflow upgrades. So obviously I don't know if anybody's ever taken the tour inside CGC to see what happens from when books come in and go to the grader's desk and where they go, after the fact to kind of be, labeled and cased and all that fun shit. I don't know how the process goes, but the process needs to change. There's no question in my mind about this. Straight to jail. It's just a lot of money, man. You want to do this with like a bullshit book? It sucks for the customer. Don't get me wrong, but what happens if this would have happened with like an AF-15 or like a Batman 1, something like that? Like, I don't know, man. And I say it all the time because I use CGC. I've used PSA as well. I've used all the grading companies, all of them. So, if anything, I'm the one to speak on. I've even used PGX back in the day. I'm talking years and years ago. I've used CBCS. I've used PSA, like I've said. I have Izzyverse in the back. He's going to join me in a minute when I let him on, but I want to finish my point here. In that, by this time, CGC should have figured this out, and I'll kind of leave it at that. Father Son Vintage Cards and Comics says, my buddy just sent me his 9.8 Mark Jeweler Secret Wars 8 yesterday. Same mistake. Well, I'm wondering if it's the same person there, man. It could be because I talked to him earlier. It definitely could be the same person. So you could actually message me on Instagram. I don't want to reveal the person's name here on air because, I don't know if this person wants their name out there, but you can message me on Instagram. I know you're on there and we can confer if it's the same person or not. I'm going to let Izzy in, but I'm going to just finish my point going through the comments. So hang on one second. There he is. What's going on?
Got to fix my hair there. You hear me well?
Yeah, you look phenomenal. Don't worry about it. Peter says, so full disclosure, the first and only mistake I ever made was when I bought of the GSX during COVID and then definitely took a hit on the book. I'm struggling with holding or selling the book off now. Well, Peter, do you absolutely need the money now? That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely need the money now. If you do, then I understand. If you don't, then kind of I would hold off. But I'm not the answer. That's a question we should address on a future podcast, and maybe even today if we have the time. Is the urge to sell when things go down, because that's a theme's like one of the biggest things with collectors is like they don't want to get stuck holding the bag, so they feel like they have to unload like right away, and that's not always the case, right, dude? Izzy, I'm asking you.
Yeah, so it's all dependent on the amount of labor you're doing, right? So if it's a sale just for the sake that you need the cash, I get it, right? You do the sale, right? But if you're a seller and you're holding on to the book, why are you holding on to a book? Especially if a book that always sells.
Yeah, I mean, he did say he would sell it to get other books that he currently wants. So that's a different story. If
Yeah.
you want to move the book out of your collection to kind of move something else in, I've done that in the past. I've taken losses just to kind of,
Mhm.
you know, add something that I really want. And I didn't want to take more money out of my pocket. So
Mhm.
that's how you get, like when you get to a certain point in collecting, like you don't want to spend any more money. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody caught my newest pickup. It's right over this shoulder here.
Yeah, it's hard to
It's
see in the blur.
Yeah. Well, you have to see it on Instagram. So it's a first print Wizard of Oz, first
Oh,
edition.
okay.
It's a first edition Wizard of Oz. It's complete, and I traded my Amazing Spider-Man 50, which is one of my biggest books in my collection, signed by John Romita and Stan Lee in an 8.0, and a little cash because I know how rare that book is, and that Wizard of Oz for me was like a big family thing for me growing up. So I've always wanted to own that, and when it came up, it was the right price. It was the right deal for me to make. So I understand, Peter, if you want other things in your collection and the GSX is not really like your thing anymore, then go for it, right, brother?
Yeah, and GXS again, it's a popular book. It's one of those books that
Yeah,
will walk no matter what. You could have a .5, someone will pick it up because it's saying you have GXX,
yeah.
GSX. It's one of those types of books. Now, if you tell me it's, I don't know, Strange Tales 242, That's a different story. You know what I mean? But first appearance of Madam Web, I guess. You know, all that kind of stuff. But if it's a book that people want, it'll walk.
Exactly, and obviously, if you bought the book, before the COVID or during the COVID boom, and you're taking a hit, I get it. I also understand the mental part it plays when you're looking at that book and you know what you paid for it, and you can't stand the sight of the book anymore because of the beating that you've taken. That it's a mental thing. So I agree. When I had this same conversation I had with Sticky Goose when I had him on the podcast, was that sometimes getting it out of your sight can be a huge lift
Hmm.
on whatever else you have going on. So I also
Yeah,
understand that, and that's part of the deal as well.
I agree.
Um, so I'll ask this question since I got you, Izzy. Is
Go
there
for it.
anything that you've purchased since COVID? I'll put it that
Okay.
way, that you've regretted that you've purchased.
I've never really did super big purchases. So whatever, if I made a big purchase that I regret it, I don't think I've ever dealt with that. I've had bought smaller purchases, but that's more based off like spec and crap like that. You know, the FOMO spec of it all and just the possibilities. But I'm that guy that just likes enjoying doing that in that way. But I don't buy. I don't buy with the notion that I'm going to regret this purchase. I've never looked at it from that perspective. So that's something that I think I can't even tell you if that ever happened because that never happened to me. But I
So
get people doing it.
yeah, yeah, man. I've made a mistake, and I'll admit right now, and this is a big admission for me, and I've admitted it before, that Batman one I traded for was not the right thing to do at that time,
Yeah.
because I should have just sold all those other books
Hmm.
and really thought about purchasing before I did that, only because it was a lot easier for me to move the smaller books than it was to move a high dollar value book like that.
Hmm.
So in the end, uh, it was one of those things for me where I looked at the book, I'm like, man, I took a beating on this thing, but getting it out of my sight was probably the best thing for me because I could move
Yeah.
on to other things. And I've been a lot happier since then. So
Yeah.
I'm going to pose the question to everybody out there in the chat. You know, Izzy said he really hasn't regretted anything that he's purchased that was big. We all make stupid little purchases sometimes just because it kind of feeds into our collecting
Yeah.
habits. We have that itch. It's like a fucking drug.
Yeah.
But
I've done the other way around. I had seller's remorse, not so much buyer's remorse. Seller's remorse, I've had plenty of those.
so I'll ask everyone in the chat, and maybe you can answer this for me. Has anybody out there bought something since COVID that they regretted buying, whether it was for monetary reasons or not? It could be just because you regretted buying it as well. But while I have you, while everybody is writing their answers to that question in the chat, hopefully you all do that. I started with today talking about your your motivations and your inspirations in your life. People I'm talking about. Like, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask you, I got you, Izzy, like growing up, becoming an adult, being an adult, was there anybody out there or multiple people who you kind of look to and were like, you know what, I really admire this person. I kind of feel the same way about things, the way they speak about things, and this kind of motivated you
Mhm.
to be who you are.
Yeah, of course. I think we all have people like that, whether it's in a small doses or large doses. I always look I've always admired the tenacity of my mother, for example. And I use the word tenacity because that's a woman that just won't give up, regardless of whether she's right or wrong. Let's just say that much. And I kind of mirror myself in that kind of same, way. Um, I look at other individuals on a spiritual level as well. I am an active churchgoer, so I look at my pastor as an example. And especially the type of pastor he is, because he's not one of those types of pastors that's like a lot of people use the term legalist, but the strict type or things like that. He's more of a very understanding individual, um, and stuff like that. Like he gets it, he gets what's going on and stuff like that, and he doesn't drill you with, I guess you say, Bible verses or things like that. It's very down to earth his approach. So I look up to that, and I try to model my own life that way, where I don't want to drill anybody with religion. That's the last thing I want to do in my life. I do it. I live my life accordingly, the way I see fit for me and my family and stuff like that. It may not People may not always agree with it, and I get that. And but we have the right to disagree. But
Mm.
I think the fact is, it doesn't change that we can't be friends. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that's the part that really irritates me about certain individuals in this world like that. But as far as that goes, it's a very small, very, very small number of individuals that I would say.
I- Is
You know
there
what I mean?
anybody? Is there anybody that we would know outside of like family and like personal people, like anyone famous or not famous or someone along those lines? It doesn't have to be. I only asked that question
Yeah.
because three people I'm going to give you are all people I think you would know, and they're not related to me. But go ahead, and I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you why on each one. But
Mhm. Well, I think Swaggle's a good example in my view because I think Mickey, and he's a guy that, especially look at Mickey's history, like where he comes from and what he's done. Like people forget this is the guy that made a music video. You know what I mean? He directed a music video. Look it up, guys. It's funny when you find out. I'm not gonna say what video it is, but look it up. It's funny. But I like the fact that he gets news scoops and he's able to just like drop them. You know what I mean? I think that's a talent that's very hard to do. So I look up to that. I look up to that. I've even reached out to him like, dude, how do you get these news scoops immediately? And that causes that. So that's something I look up to. Um, like him or not, Comic Tom. I think Comic Tom knows how to market himself, knows how to really get people to watch him. Again, another guy. You may not always agree with everything he's saying or doing, or may agree with certain things, but to me, he's one of those guys that when I look at it, it's like the views are there for a reason. They're not fabricated. You know what I mean? So those are two guys I look at. Maybe not so much in a look up to, but guys that I inspire to be like in some way. So I look at it from that kind of perspective. And of course, my boy Cliff, only because there's another guy that for me, he's everywhere and does whatever he can. You know what I mean? I call him a little whore, but that's because I love him and stuff like that. And he knows it, and I told him in his face. So, as you could probably tell by the videos we do together. So, but those are three guys, and specifically, I would just say, you know what, I consider them, you know, people to aspire to be like, maybe not be exactly like, but those are people that they have the work ethic in play. May
Mm.
not again, you don't have to agree with how they do it or what they do, but they're doing it, and I think that's the important part of it.
All right, so I'm still looking for everybody in the comments to answer this question if you want about who your inspirations are in your life, whether personal or non-personal. I'm going to go ahead and share mine because I want to do an actual full-length podcast on this with some other guests to
Mhm.
hear from them because I do think, everything about the rewind is like going back and determining who we are, what made us who we are today, and the things that we enjoyed. So the first one I'm going to give, and I'm going to give you three, is the one you're going to recognize right off the bat, and that's Todd McFarlane. Because
Mhm.
all of us here are comic book fans, and it's not because obviously we all grew up loving Todd's art. It's because of Todd's mindset. Todd McFarlane going from a younger baseball player who loved the game of baseball and always wanted to be a comic book artist, never took no for an answer. He's like, this is what I want to do. I'm
Mhm.
not going to stop. I'm going to do this until somebody takes me on. And not only that, I'm going to get better as I do it. Once I am accepted, I'm going to keep getting better until I become the best that there's ever been. And he's in that conversation
Mhm.
of artists that I think the best that has ever do it in the comic book industry. So not so much his art, but Todd McFarlane's mindset is something to me that I've always admired. And to me, that's how I am. Like, and you're going to see the other two people that I mentioned are along the same lines as that. And
Mhm.
and the next one I'm going to talk about is Steve Jobs. Now, some people hate Steve Jobs. Some people think he's the biggest asshole to ever walk the face of the earth.
And he maybe
But the
is
way
right.
this guy spoke everything he ever wanted into existence. And if anyone ever knew me personally, the people who actually know me in my regular life, outside of YouTube and outside of you seeing me and me being cordial and me being nice, it probably say I'm the exact same way. That in my job and in whatever, I am just a fucking bull, and I don't take no for an answer, and I do what I want, and my way is the right way. And not only that, my way is the right way. I'm going to prove to you that the way I'm doing it is better than the way someone else is doing something. So Steve Jobs is someone not only being from a creative aspect, but also from mindset of, hey, I'm going to do something that nobody's done and everyone else is going to love it.
Hmm.
So, and my last person I'm going to give you is my absolute favorite, someone who grew up right around the corner from me in New Jersey, and that's Bill Parcells. Now, I am a huge football fan to the point where I've coached it. I've coached my eldest son in it who played in high school. He just finished his senior year. And I've always been enamored with the way coaches coach the game, not only to teach the game, but also to get someone or player or whoever person to get them to do exactly what they want them to do. And not only that, make them better for it. So Bill was the best at it because he could actually get under somebody's skin. But at the same time, while getting under somebody's skin, he would make them a better player, would call them on the side and say, also get into their heart the same way. It's like, you know what, made you a better player, but this is why you're this way. This is why you're this way. So it's subtle motivation. It's teaching, and it's that same mindset of, hey, you're going to do it. We're going to do this the way it's going to be done, and you're going to do it the right way, and we're going to get there together. Like, that's my mindset completely. And those are three guys that have really shaped my life. A lot of people would say their parents. I love my dad more than anything in this world, but at the same time, I've gone through my whole life trying not to be my father, to be the exact opposite of my father. So I thought this was an interesting topic
Yeah.
for tonight. So uh,
I like your choices in that way. Of course, I didn't have time to think it like that, but the way, I think Todd is a prime example of, he's the guy that follows, I guess you could say he followed Stan Lee in the approach of being the showman.
mm,
Um, when you think of comics, you think, let's be honest, when you think of comics, the first name that usually comes on most people's mind is Stan Lee, right? And then, but I think what Todd has become, especially now, Todd is that guy, like you said, never says no for an answer, never takes no for an answer. It's it's one of those things that when you hear the way he thinks, it's very interesting. Not everybody could be that way, right? When he makes a decision, that's the decision he's go to, even if he's wrong. And when he knows he's wrong, he knows he's wrong, but he's like, no, I'm still gonna go this way. This is the path I chose, and this is the path I'm going. That's the reason why we don't have a Spawn movie right now. But he's finally giving into it a little bit, and he's starting to understand why that's the case. Steve Jobs is a guy that I think when it came to branding, especially branding, he made it so that Apple, and it's very similar to a Walt Disney approach, I would think, is the best of the best. Whether it is or isn't is a different story. But he made you believe that you have to have this. He made you believe that we have to do it this way. And that's
and that and
something
that That's what I
that's
think.
something that's hard.
All three
Yeah.
of them share that's the whole thing. Like, even Todd, like, you look past the comics with the toys. Like, he was the first one to do all those McFarlane sports toys. Like, those were huge when I was growing
Yeah,
up.
I
So, like,
remember. And
what
when he
he's been
made the
able to
toys,
do over
yeah.
the range has been
What he
incredible.
what he did with the toys was very interesting because he saw a product that was like could be so much better, and no one's doing it better. So instead of saying, why don't you do it better? He says, why don't I do it? He had the money, he had the resources to do it. He did it. And I remember when that first Spawn toy came out because I was at FAO Shorts ready to pick it up, and I picked it up. Right? It's long gone now, but I picked up the first Spawn toy that came out. It was three of them, if I remember. It was the Spawn, it was Medieval Spawn, and I think it was Violator, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I ended up getting all three of them and stuff like that. And they're long gone. I opened them up. I wasn't a kid at the time, but I still opened them up because I said, "What the hell?" I wasn't thinking like a collector at that time. I was just thinking about a guy that likes toys. Um, and all that stuff. I'm not, Bill Parcells, obviously from New York. I know who you're talking about. I'm not into football in the same way as everybody else is. I learned football very late in my life, only because I grew up in a household where baseball was the thing. It was
No, I
all
get
about
it.
it was all about baseball at home.
So was
And
I. Like I grew up a huge Mets fan growing up as a kid.
yeah,
Me and my dad went to with the games, but to me, like football was just always my sport.
yeah, for me it was the Yankees. Being from the Bronx, man. My father hated my father hated every New York team. So because he liked doing bets. So his approach was, if I'm against them, I could bet all these guys and win. And sometimes he win, sometimes he lose. Let's be honest. In the '90s, he did not win that often with the Yankees.
Yeah,
With the
that's
Mets, yes.
Stein. Yeah, that's Steinbrenner. But anyway, the before we get to the rest of the questions I see in the chat, and please keep dropping them. The reason I brought this whole thing up is because I mentioned at the start of the show, like I have a week left at my current job, roughly, and I'm gonna embark on something that I've always wanted to do
Mhm.
in my life. Like I'm not gonna be doing what I've been doing for the past almost 26 years anymore. So I want to do something for me. This is going to be the stage of my life where I'm going to start doing what I want to do. And those three guys have been like my inspiration my entire life, and I'm finally kind of putting my foot to the ground on this thing to kind of try to do something that I want to do. So that's why my whole emotion,
Mhm.
thinking about bringing this up tonight. But question
Congratulations on
from
reaching that crossroad. Then
yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'm gonna give it my best. Do you have any philosophy or tips on how do you balance having multiple hobbies? For me, I'm all about omnibus and collected editions and adding slabs here and there. I definitely want to get into others. That's a really great question. So to
Mhm.
me, my only guidance I can give you here is that don't overstep your bounds. Like if you're collecting multiple things, and for me, I know you only see part of this room, but you obviously see comics, you see statues, you see original art. I have a couple of arcade units that are over here as well. I have toys in this room, so I have cards. Like it's. I have no philosophy in how I do it. I am more diligent in how I spend my money. So that's the only thing I can say about philosophy wise. Don't overstep your bounds with regards to money, because when you end up overstepping it, and that's where it becomes a problem. How about you? You have any advice you can give
Yeah,
here?
my biggest advice is know your budget.
Yeah.
Know what you can spend and know where you could spend it at. Um, One of the biggest problems we have in the hobby collection is that we don't pay attention to how much money we're actually spending, and I'm guilty of this myself. Every time I go to a con, I go in with the thought of, this is how much I plan on spending. And sometimes what I end up doing is I just take out cash, and that's my cash, because you know how it is. Cash is king in a con. Um, so speaking of King Kong, right? Uh, but when I go with cash, I know that's my limit. You know what I mean? Now I
Mhm.
may go as far and say, all right, I'm I'm short $5, $10. I'll do it this way, and that's fine. To do a little stretch, that's fine, but don't overdo it. Rent needs to get paid. You get
Yeah.
my point? And when they get into this hobby, sometimes they get over, they just go crazy doing it, especially when they see something that they want and they see that it's way above their price range. You have to really consider if it's worth it at that time. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe the cards are on the deck, maybe it's not. Usually, like, you know me, Lawrence, I go to a lot. When I go to cons, I always go, this is how much I plan on spending. I usually spend just that amount of money, and no more, no less.
Mhm.
I would love to go to a con and say, I only spend a few bucks and I have left. That usually doesn't happen. But hey, man, I spend over $200 in a con. I don't want to do that. So, and that's the same thing with multiple
Yeah,
hobbies.
it's tough.
I'm primarily a comic guy. I'm really a comic guy. What you see back here is just little things I have, memorabilia, things like that. But really, I'm a comic book guy. So that's my thing. So I try to be very cautious about it.
So he says basically stuff like original art, possibly hot toys, but can see it being very cramped for space and cash. So like the cash part we just talked about, but the space is another thing, right? I don't know where you live. You live in
Yeah.
an apartment, you live in a house, you have a designated space like I do. Like everything is crammed into this one room. So like at one point, I had too much shit in here. I had like 6 arcades in here,
Yeah.
plus all this stuff. Now I have 2 arcades, so like a little bit more room. So um I don't like having too much stuff. Like I like having minimalistic. That's why I have the cases back here. I have like one or two things in the case. It just one, it's a nice display. It gives me what I need, and it's not overly cramped. So everybody's different when it comes to space. So again, that's another thing. Cash and space is two things you have to think of among anything else. So Sasso says he's made many mistakes and sold books to move on. And we talked about mental clarity, right? Mental clarity is like it really makes you make better decisions. That's what
Yeah.
mental clarity means, right? Obviously,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah.
getting rid of
Yeah,
dead
if
weight.
you do this if you do this as an investment, I could understand that. But I think 80% of comic collectors don't collect based off investment.
Mhm.
They based off of nostalgia, they based off of what they like, what they love, if it's a certain artist, if it's a certain writer. Um, Investment is like I think it's like maybe less than 20%. But if you're doing it on investment, that you know what you're doing, and you should be knowing what you. If you're doing it just because of the love, then do it for the love. And when it's time to let it go, it's time to let it go. I told you I have
I,
over 60 boxes of comics.
yeah,
Some of them
I
gotta
see. I don't.
go.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that shit. I tell you right now, man. Just the space alone to have all that shit. But unfortunately, like that's comic collecting because
Yeah,
there are runs because there's stuff like that. Like you're gonna have a lot of stuff if you keep buying and buying and buying. Like and some of them are pretty cheap if you're just gonna collect runs and stuff like that. But that's where it gets like the little trinkets here and there. Like that's where space comes into to play because you could buy like a $10 little trinket from the 1980s that you fell in love with, and you know what? You spend $10, $20, who gives a shit? It's not the end of the world. But
yeah,
when you keep doing that, the space really kind of crams into here, and then it becomes
hmm,
harder to get rid of it as well. That's the
yeah,
next thing. Like, how am I going to get rid of all
yeah.
this shit?
And the next thing, when it comes to that type of collecting too, again, like I said, I have 60 boxes, over 60 boxes, and largely because this is mostly a reader collection. This is based off of books I read since the 80s that I've just kept. So there's a good chunk of them that have no real significant value. To a con, and I'll just sell them out, and I'll sell them out for dirt cheap because again, if I bought them back in the 80s, I probably bought them dirt cheap back then either. So it doesn't
Yeah.
hurt me. I don't have any sentimental value. Whatever I have that I consider sentimental value is actually going into a different box, which is like this is the box of the books I want, and I'm going to keep. All
Mhm.
the other ones, sooner or later, they're going to be gone. I'll replace them with something else because that's usually what's going to end up happening. And to Cross Bronx was a good boy, man. I got to meet him in one of the shows. What's the best location for a man cave in the house? Wherever the water will not go to. That's my
Wherever the wife
answer.
lets you, that's the better. The better answer is wherever
That's
the
the answer.
wife lets you put it. That's
Wherever the wife left leaves you, and then keep your boxes above ground in some
yeah.
capacity. Don't put them on the floor because that's dangerous.
So Sasso says he picked up a Marvel Spotlight 2 that he overpaid for. And he said Reggie made a suggestion. I'm not going to kill Reggie. We all have made suggestions on books that we've gotten killed on, including myself. So Reggie's a good dude. But yeah,
Yeah,
we've all made mistakes on buying books. Come on. It's just, I'd like to hear what people, the mistakes, because we all made them. I told you what mine was at at the midway point of the show here. FOMO incentive 1 in 100 variants. Oh, the money wasted on that garbage when I started collecting again. I agree with you, and Izzy can definitely speak on more to the modern stuff because he covers it a lot more than
yeah,
I do. But I remember when I had Swaggerhouse on the podcast, we talked about like people getting back into the hobby. And I've mentioned this a bunch since then. Is that when people want to get into collecting, they feel more comfortable buying modern books at first, dipping their toe in the water,
mhm,
seeing what's out there because they like a cover or they've heard about variants, or heard about incentives, and they feel more comfortable doing that as opposed to going
yeah.
right to vintage where it's a little bit more intimidating for first buyers. So
Yeah, it's the same thing as everything else. It's the supply and demand type of thing, right? So the supply for a 1 in 100 obviously is less than the regular, but is there a demand? If there's no demand, the 1 in 100 means nothing. So I'm gonna give you a good example of a book today, because since you mentioned it earlier when I was watching the ultimate endgame blind bags, the disaster that turned from it, right? there is a special. Is it 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000? I'm not sure. It's a Chip Zdarsky Spider-Man cover. It's a cover of Peter Parker. Now, this book has the potential to being a new white. Swaggle even said make it a new white whale because the books came in damaged, and then this book is considered a 1 in 1,000. I think it's a 1 in 1,000. So there's a possibility very few of them that have minimal damage. They all have damage, by the way. I haven't heard of one that didn't. But if let's just say one does turn up that's not damaged, that book is going to demand a high dollar amount. Does that book matter to you in the long run? That's dependent on you. For me, I couldn't care less because it's a book that doesn't mean anything to me. It could have been a lot less, but because there's so few of them now, it becomes a hot item. The book previously was ASM 667, right? The auto cover that there's probably 100 out there. Very few of them in high grade as well. So there's that, and that's in the modern world. But I think when it comes to the modern world, very, very few of them will outlive the time like the previous ones. I would say the same thing with copper. Copper doesn't have that same stay value, with the exception of maybe a few other books. But you have to go bronze and before to get the books that really are going to stand the test of time. Most modern books don't stand the test of time, but that's the same thing with every age. I think it's just that we don't think about the books that came week over week during that time period because there was a lot, right? So
There was to me like the modern era of comic books is about the art. Like that's really what like this is right now is the best time for comic book art there's ever been. Like
I
there are
agree.
so many amazing artists. So like what you're buying is the art.
Yeah.
There are a few good stories out there don't that are collectibles, the runs and stories, yes. But let's not forget where the value lies in comics and why is because of the amazing characters that have stood the test of time over that time frame. So that's what I would think to say to like some of the modern creators out there is that when a character gets created that becomes a pop culture icon, that creator will take off. I said this about Mark Spears about how like
Hmm.
his run right now is like Todd's run in the late 80s, early 90s. All it's taking right now is for him to create that one character that becomes important in comic lore and he'll be instantly shot to the moon because of what
He
he's
may have
doing with
that
his
one
art.
coming.
Yeah,
There may
you
be
never
that
know.
one.
Like,
There's one
yeah,
that's a potential. Um, yeah, I think for what it's worth, you're right with the artist. Today, there's an artist age now because stories. Let's be honest, DC and Marvel, more so Marvel than DC, but DC and Marvel have not been putting out stories that stand the test of time. There, people are not talking about stories anymore. They're talking about how hot that cover is, and no one could care. No one could give a damn about what's going on the inside. It sucks for the interior artists because I think the interior artist deserves that love, and I think they might deserve the love even more so because of the amount of work they have to do, and not get as much credit for it. But come on, you see an Art Germ cover, you see a Mark Spears cover, you see, I don't know, John Jang. I'll just throw any name I could think of on top of my head, and you're like, wow, look at that cover, and that's all you're thinking about is that cover. You're not thinking about anything that's inside that book.
correct. And that's where the variant comes in as well because a book could have 30 variants and that one variant is just everybody's favorite. It's the hottest book of the month, but down the line, what's it going to be? Like I remember that the Jacques Joker cover, like at some point
Yeah.
was insanely expensive. And then all of a sudden for that great cover, it came down to a more manageable price,
Mhm.
even though the cover is iconic. So I don't know. I like modern books, but I think modern books are made for that art, except for the stories that are really few and far between that kind of take off or resonate with collectors.
Yeah, it's you brought up a book. You brought up a book that's very iconic, which is that Jock Batman. I look at the ASM 55, the iconic Patrick Gleason webhead cover. I I have a goal to get all those covers just because I love that cover so much. You know what I mean? I have the black and white one, which is the original. There's a white one. That's the one I need to get. I got the red. I got the blue. I got them all. I just need the white one. So that's one of my goals for this year, which is not an expensive book, but I want to have it. because I just like it and I want to like display them all together because they look
Yeah,
cool in a display.
it it,
What's
it does.
inside? I have no idea. No idea what the story
S-
inside is about.
So we have a super chat for Hurricane. Where you been, bud? You're late to the party today. It's already 8:48. But he says, "What are the top 5 X-Men books to collect?" So that's a great
Excellent.
question.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you my top 5, and this is hard. And you jump in when you want, Izzy.
Yeah.
Obviously, to me, X-Men #1 is the book you want to own.
Mhm.
And for me, #2 is Giant Size X-Men 1, second appearance of Wolverine. Those are two I think are must
Yeah.
owns if you're an X-Men fan. Now, are we including like first appearance characters like Hulk 181 in that? Are we considering that an X-Men book or
Also,
no? Because
X-Men
he's an X-Men.
adjacent book.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna say let's exclude those books because
Okay.
obviously that would
So we
be
got
like
pure X-Men.
yeah, pure X-Men titles.
For me, it's gonna always be X-Men 101. It's first
Yeah.
Jean Grey as Phoenix. That is
And
iconic
that's a
to
great
me.
cover, a great cover as well.
I love that book. That is another book I'm hunting down. Also for me is X-Men 244, the first Jubilee. I have a significant feeling, I named my daughter after Jubilee, so that's why I love that book. And I just love the name. I loved her name. I love the character. I love what she stands for and things like that. Um, 266, Gambit. First
I
Gambit's
think
always
I wouldn't do the Jubilee. I put 266 in there and I put X-Men 94 in there as
yeah,
well.
94, of course. Even though and I said this, I don't like that cover. 94
I
is
don't like the cover
iconic
either.
for what it's iconic, but that's a cover that man, I every time I look at that cover, I'm like, ugh. Um, which is the
Here's the thing about the two. While we think of the last one here, the 266, there are a lot of copies out there. So there
yes,
are some copies where the green is so dark
yeah,
that it really makes the book look so much better. That's the copy I'd be after in a 9.8 if I was a collector.
yeah.
Because it's still a relatively inexpensive book.
Oh yeah,
9.8s
it's
go
like
roughly for under $500.
mhm,
So, but if you could find that dark green copy in a 9.8,
mhm,
that's the book I would buy. But
yeah.
what do you think? One more that we can come up with.
What more? Why is the number escaping me? You know which book I'm going to talk about, but it's Days of Future Past. I think that's
Yeah.
another iconic cover, but I can't remember what number it is. Like my brain's not working right
We're
now.
talking about the one with the Magneto on the cover? Or no? Am I
No, no,
thinking
the
of something
Days of
else?
Future Past. It's the one with Wolverine and Kitty, and then it's just it
The
has the
blue cover.
posters.
Yeah, the blue cover. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that cover. I
I
don't know. I
like
don't
that
like
cover.
that cover.
Thank you. 141. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. 141, man. I love that cover.
And like I said,
It's
I
been
have Izzy
homage a
here. I
lot,
have
but I
Izzy
love that
here.
cover.
I, I have Izzy here. If anyone else wants to jump on, they're more than welcome to come on with us. Like just
Yeah.
the beginning, I have it pinned. The link is pinned in the beginning. So Dave, if you do want to jump on, you're more than welcome. See,
The Coma
so
King Geek
other people are
50.
saying X-Men 50. All right, I'm gonna say X-Men 12, Juggernaut. I've always enjoyed that
That's a
book
good one.
more than any of the others.
Yeah.
141, 142. They're saying
That's Days of Future Past.
Giants. Yeah. So yeah, the whole run there. So I
Yeah.
get it. Dave says X-Men 14.
First Sentinel.
For
That's a
me,
good one.
yeah, that to me is not a big one for me. I would go with 12 Juggernaut over that. That to me, I think that's a bigger key.
Mhm.
And I think it's a more desirable book. But again, I'm not a huge X-Men fan. I'll leave the X-Men fans to determine what they want to buy. But those are probably mine.
I'm a big X-Men fan. I named my kids after X-Men. What do you expect? Um, yeah, I X-Men. I just love X-Men. I can't wait to actually see them done right. As far as major keys, 50 definitely with that Steranko cover with the iconic logos first appearance. The logos first appearance is important. The Neil Adams one with the living monolith holding the logo.
Yeah,
That's a great cover. There was a time, man. There was a time I used to remember all those numbers, and I've reached that
you're
point in
getting
my
old,
life where
brother.
I can't remember those numbers anymore. Dude, man, I'm hitting 50 this year, man. I'm gonna hit
Are
50.
you really?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit
Wow,
50
man.
this year.
I'm
You can't
I'm
tell.
I'm
It's
oh,
just
I'm 1 year behind you, so
yeah,
I got one on you.
yeah.
Peter
You
says,
don't
I
see
know
me
you've
gray
just
because I shave it off. I can't grow a beard for
yeah.
the life of me.
Well, it's funny. I did one of my videos recently where I shaved this real short, and someone said I look 20 years younger. So
Yeah,
I might have to do that from now on. So
dude, I can't grow a beard, man. I'm
oh,
terrible.
that's
It's the worst. If to get just even stubble takes like 2 weeks for me. So
Peter says I know you've discussed it before, but what are your thoughts on Absolute Batman 1? I was able to get it in a 9.8 signed by Scott Snyder, and I just love the art and relevance of the book currently. I've heard the story is great, but I've also heard from people that don't care for it as well. Again, own the book in a 90. I think it's great. I think it's even greater that Scott signed it. It's all about what you paid for it.
Mhm.
If you paid $500, I think you overpaid. If you paid like 250, I think you're all right. Anything more than that, for me, I think it's going to end up coming down because at the end of the day, while it may be a great story, we've seen these modern books in the past have great stories like Something is Killing the Children. The number one issue in a 9.8 is worth some change. So maybe it could
Yeah,
go up. But this is like that's an independent book that's been optioned for movies or whatever it is, a show, whatever
yeah,
it's going to be.
or everything.
This is a different universe Batman. So I have no idea how it's going to play out.
All right. So the best comparison, and I've talked about Absolute Batman at nauseum. So I guess you could say I'm an expert at this conversation. All right. The best comparison I could give it is Ultimate Spider-Man #1, the first Ultimate Spider-Man #1, the one that came out in
The,
2000, Mark
with
Bagley,
the red
and
cover, Reddit.
red
Yep.
cover. That's the best. That's the best comparison of it. That book at its time, at its peak, reached the same levels as an Absolute Batman. Absolute Batman is extremely hot today because it is easy to get into. It's easy to get into. That's what that's making it work. And the people that are picking it up and the people that are picking it up and spending this kind of money are new people. A lot of them are new people. They're new into the industry, um, which I love. I love that fact about it. That Absolute Batman is actually bringing in new readers because that's what we need. We need new readers. We don't need new collectors. We need people that are going to read comic books and then eventually move to other comic books and things like that. Absolute Batman is hitting a group of an audience that other books just couldn't do, right? Because again, it's an easy jumping on point. You don't have to go through back history. You know it's Batman in some way. It's a different version of a Batman, but it's still a Batman, and you have everything new, and everything feels fresh. Everything feels new. Is it for everyone? No, it's not for everyone. But so with that said, you know, if you want Absolute Batman now and you're willing to cough up $500 for the book, you know, God bless you. You know what I mean? That's what I got to tell you. Am I willing to cough up $500 for that book? No. Am I willing to cough up $300? No. There's 350,000 copies of that book out there. It is being graded at day in, day out. They see 1,000 copies all the time coming in into CGC. It's being graded. It's reaching that level. So therefore, with that being said, this book will drop in value. It will. There's no escaping it.
So when I did my top 25 comics of the year of 2025, Absolute Batman was number 2.
Mhm.
At that moment, there were over 3,000 copies in a 9.8 already.
And
So keep
it's
that
only a
in.
year old.
Yeah,
Only a year
that
old.
so perspective, guys. It's going to
Yeah.
have more than a total of AF-15s on the
Mhm.
census just in a 9.8.
That book, I promise you, will eventually reach 10,000 copies at a 9.8. And when that number hits, I promise you the price of that book will drop. I think
Yeah.
now it's just hot because it's hot. And like everything else, it is hot. It will die out. Give it time.
Hurricane again with a $2 Canadian super chat. What's your favorite Bronze Age horror titles? That's a good one. For
Mm,
me, number one is House of Secrets. Like I've always enjoyed all, or I shouldn't say all, I should say most of the covers.
mhm.
As far as writing as well, Bernie writes in with the art.
Yeah, Bernie is the
Uh,
king, man.
so I mean, like to me, it's House of Secrets. What about you?
I like House of Secret too. I love Tomb of Dracula. I think Tomb of Dracula is such a cool book. Especially with all the stuff that it has in it, right? You have the first
Yeah,
Blade that comes into it as well, so there's some fun stuff in that. Neil Adams cover, that red, the
a
red in
lot of
that cover is so iconic to me.
House of Mystery as well as a lot of
Mm,
Neil Adams stuff as well. I'm not a huge fan of House of Mystery books for some
mm,
reason. I never got into it. Some of the art on some of the covers is great, but I think more of the iconic covers that I kind of dig are definitely in that House of Secrets run. Those that's to me that's That's
Yeah.
where if I'm gonna buy Bronze Age horror, that's where I'm putting my money.
Yeah, and Marvel Spotlight in general. I think Marvel Spotlight, I don't know if you count this as horror, as more supernatural with the Ghost Rider as well. So I don't know. I wouldn't call it exactly horror, but why not? It's a flaming skull.
Ta- Tacoma, yeah. Tacoma says, do the same game for ASM. What did you mean? Like our top 5 books? Is that what you mean? Just let me know, and then we'll do that. Run Me Through said he also named his daughter out of an X-Man, so that's cool.
Yeah. But did you name your daughter Jubilation? Because that's what
Is
I
that
did.
your daughter's name is Jubilation?
Yeah, she's named Jubilation. I named her after the actual name.
That's
People love
crazy,
it, man.
bro.
When they hear it, it's like, you name what? What's her name? It's like Jubilation.
Does does she love it though? That's
Yeah,
my
she does.
question.
She actually loves her
Okay,
name. She
awesome. I mean,
absolutely
yeah,
loves her name. Obviously, she goes by Jubilee. Everybody calls her Jubilee and stuff like that. But I want it here. I don't know if you. I don't know, Lawrence, if you understand this, but I'm sure most people watching. I wanted to name my kids with names that I could. The that more angry I get at them, the longer their name is. So I want to have like a name that they'll know when I say their full name, they know how angry I am, but because I said their name. If if you know what I mean by discipline, like, you get over here, Jubilation Lee, that's her. I wanted to do something like that, and I did the same thing with my other daughter too. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, I
so,
think top 5 ASM, top 5 Batman. I think Batman's probably a little harder than ASM. I think ASM's a little more easier. Or are we sticking to ASM, or are we sticking to Spider-Man? That's the real question for me.
well, he said, yeah, he said do the same top 5 covers for ASM. Hold on, I just saw the top 5 iconic covers for Spider-Man. ASM. We'll stick to ASM.
Okay.
And someone's asking for the link. Dave, I did just repost a link. If you do want to jump in, you're more than welcome.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great question. We're talking about iconic. We're not just talking about first appearance books or important books. We're talking about covers. If we're just talking about covers alone, the number one we have to go to is Amazing Spider-Man 50, in my opinion. That's, to me, is just, it tells a whole story in just the cover. So I think that has to be my number one when we're talking about covers for Amazing Spider-Man. That's such a great question. And I'm looking over
Yeah,
here. I'm looking at the covers.
a few months ago, I did an article and a video on the top 25 iconic covers, but I did it based off of pure iconic. So no key, nothing. It's just the cover, right? So I limited first Kingpin. It didn't make the list, though it is iconic.
But still, the
You know what
cover
I
is
mean? So
just
I'm not
like,
taking that
yeah.
away from it. Yeah, the cover's iconic. So for
I'd
me,
have
if
to
I'm gonna go
go.
based on iconic, I go with Hulk 340. I think Hulk
But no,
340 is the
we're
best
just doing Spider-Man.
iconic cover out there.
But just Amazing
Oh,
Spider-Man icon.
Spider-Man, that I'm gonna, though if it says
5.
300,
I
well,
agree with you.
300
300's
also,
got to
but
be in there. It has to be in.
yeah, 300 has to be there. But for me, it's gonna be 316. I think 316 is even better. The whole Venom
I agree
over
with you. I do
Spider-Man.
think so. I agree with all two of those. So we have 3 right there. Obviously 50, 316, and 300. I'm throwing 129 in there. That cover
Yeah,
is still to this day one of the
yeah.
best covers that ever has been done, with the
That
yellow,
Punisher is
with the
amazing.
Punisher, Spider-Man upside down in the
Mhm.
scope, iconic. So I'm putting 129 in there.
Yeah,
Outside of that, it's tough. Like if we're
yeah.
gonna go
I will.
past
Oh, yeah,
300, there are so many great covers.
yeah. I said it before. The ASM 55, the new. I don't even know which volume it is anymore at this point. I think it's like volume 3 or 4. I don't know the modern one, but I think that's an iconic cover. That's one that's gonna stay love years over end. Probably one of the last iconic covers out there. Um,
Well,
wow.
it's funny. It's funny you mentioned 55 because I'm going the vintage 55, the Doc Ock cover, the Ramita cover with the
Yeah,
with the
yeah. I know what you're talking
that
about.
to me is also that to me I put in that top 5 as me, is if I'm going to buy strictly on covers, that cover is amazing. And if you saw the original artwork, which I saw, I'd actually know who owns it now, which is wild. Uh, really great to know the person who actually owns that cover now. Just amazing to see in person.
Mhm.
All right, so let's go
That's
back
awesome.
and
Yeah, I did a sketch for somebody.
so someone was saying X-Men
Okay, am
4
I
should be
back?
included. You're back, but you're going in and out. Your audio,
Yeah,
your
I
video
was
too is going in and
I
out.
saw that happening. Yeah, I saw that. Maybe I
As,
just changed
as
the.
long as I could hear
Let me
you,
see the
as long as I could
resolution. I'm gonna
hear
see if I can
you,
lower the
it's not
resolution
a big
a bit.
deal.
Yeah, I'm just lowering the resolution just to be a little better. Mhm.
All right, so Hurtan,
Problem.
another $2 super chat, but this is a really good one. Castlevania versus Double Dragon. So they're both iconic, but I'm going to tell you, if we're talking about arcade or home console, we're having a different conversation because I think home console
They're two
I'd go
different things.
Castlevania. Arcade, yeah,
Double
arcade
Dragon.
Double Dragon. There's no question in my mind because when that came out, that made my top 10 arcades of the 1980s. That was on there, and it was pretty high on my list because that game was iconic in the arcade. Wasn't as good on the NES, never was. But Castlevania again on the NES was pure magic. So again, if we're talking arcades, I'm taking Double Dragon all day. NES, I'm going Castlevania.
How many quarters have you spent on Double Dragon? Because I played that a lot in the pizza shop. At the pizza shop with my
I
corner, my
I was that kid like that. I would play the same games every time I'd go to arcade. No matter what arcade it was, I would try to find the same games because I absolutely love them. Double Dragon was one of those games, so I couldn't tell you how much money I spent on that shit. Where I remember playing it the most was at the roller rink. The roller rink on the back of the rink had like a mini arcade, and they had Double Dragon. So every time I was there, I would always go instead of fucking roller skating. I was going to the arcade and playing Double Dragon. So that's what
yeah,
I remember. And by
yeah.
the
For
way,
me, it was like
that
because we had the pizza
yeah,
shop in the corner, and I would always be in the pizza shop having a slice, playing Double Dragon. It was Double Dragon and Ninja Gaiden was the other one that I will play at nausea because I love playing Ninja Gaiden in the arcade. Castlevania was great in the game console where for some reason double they didn't translate it well in the game console and it just wasn't it didn't have that same feeling
it's
that
a
the
lot of games that were
arcade
arcade. A
did. You
lot
know
of
what I
games that
mean?
were
When you would
arcade
play it
when
and
they
all
came
that
over to
stuff.
the. A lot of games that when the arcade when they came over ported to the NES, they didn't have that same feel because you needed that joystick. You needed to be able to move that way.
And there was a
Playing
little
on
bit
the
of
NES was
modification
fine, but
too.
it didn't give you that same magic.
Yeah. You had to, there was some
I don't
modification
remember
in the
what was
style.
different.
Mhm.
Top 5 Batman books, and now we're just talking about books. We're not talking about covers, right? This to me is an easy one because it's obviously Detective Comics 27, Batman 1. I think Batman 11, that classic Joker
Uh-huh.
cover with the cards. I've always wanted to own that book, but Detective Comics 31, obviously, got to be on the list. So the
250,
first 4 for me
257,
are
I think it
easy.
is, with Joker holding Batman, the Neil Adams Joker.
N- The
It's
251,
251, 251. I
251.
said 257. Um,
So that might be up there. I like the book. No, 227, I think, is a
yeah,
better cover than 251. That's just my opinion. I think 251 is the more of an important book because of the kind of transition of the Joker. But if I'm just going covers, I'm taking
227. That's
227.
the
But
Neil Adams one, right? The homage.
they're both Neil Adams. Yeah, yeah, they're both
Yeah,
the black cover.
yeah. I love that cover too.
So I mean I probably go with that as well. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with a lot of Batman books, but my top 4 I think is set in stone with the ones I started off with. Like I would choose those 4 books over any other Batman books if I could afford them.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the year one cover, David Kelly year one cover, Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller cover, of course. Even though I like three as
The
well,
story Dark Knight Returns.
I prefer year one over
What?
Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, you just lost me
No,
right there.
don't get
No,
me wrong. I
I
love
like Year
Dark
One.
Knight
Don't get me wrong.
Returns. I love Dark Knight Returns, but I just love the story behind year one. How it how Frank Miller was able to
Yeah,
tell the story.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I agree with you. I don't think I don't disagree with it, but to me, I love the story of having an older Batman who is fed up with everything, who can't stop being Batman, and like you could tell right from that book that he needed to be Batman. That's why I love the
Yeah.
story because that started the whole thing with Batman not being able like to not be Batman anymore. Like that was him. It wasn't Bruce Wayne anymore. He was actually Batman. That's what started it for me,
Yeah.
and I fell in love with that story right
What I
away.
would love to see is an actual adaptation of Dark Knight Returns, but
Yeah, I
not in a
agree.
movie. I think in a movie wouldn't do it justice. I think it should be like a mini series, kind of like an HBO series event where you could do six to eight episodes, because Dark Knight Returns, it's 4 issues, but with all the stuff that's going on with that story, you could expand that into an 8 episode, and make it work, because you got Batman versus the mutants, then you have Batman versus Joker, you have Batman versus Superman, you have Batman versus the people of Gotham, and everything that comes along with that story, that you know everything that's in that story, you get to see it. And I think we did it in that format, even to the animated movie that they had to do it in 2 parts, because in that story, that I think if you did a live action TV HBO Max series, we'll say, it would be freaking sick if you, and get Mike in to do it, just for the hell of it,
So,
just have
Izzy,
fun with
why
it.
don't you try? Why don't you try? Why don't you try popping in and popping out because your
Yeah,
audio is going in
I'm
and
gonna give
out,
that
and
a shot.
maybe that would help.
I try to close up other things, but I don't know
Okay,
what's causing it. I think I know what may be causing it, but
go do it. I'm gonna boot you out of here for a minute. So I'll wait for him to come back. Hopefully that fixes his audio. But there was a lot of great responses about Amazing Spider-Man covers. 300, obviously, the 129, 50, 252. We forgot about that. You're 100% right, but it is an homage to AF-15. Spectacular Spider-Man 101. I think you mean ASM 316, not 416, but maybe I'm wrong, and 129. Someone agrees with me about ASM 55. I agree. That's a great cover. 14, Peter says he likes 14. I'm not always a huge fan of the cover. I love the yellow, but the rest of the cover to me is not that great. 601, yes, definitely a great modern cover. 194, not a great cover in my opinion. Uh, Peter says, question, would you guys sell a low grade ASM? Would I sell a low grade ASM 1 to acquire a high grade ASM 14? I wouldn't. I'd rather have the 1. That's just my opinion. I'd rather have the 1 in any grade. As long as it looked nice, I'm happy with that. I think it's a more important book than 14. I know 14 is the first appearance of the Green Goblin. I know it's an important book. Arch Nemesis. I still want to own the book. I do own the book. I own both of them. But my answer to the question is I'd rather have the low grade ASM 1 because it's an iconic book. I'm going to try to add Izzy back here and see if this hopefully fixes
better.
this issue. For now, yeah,
You
it
know what
looks
it was?
fine now.
My antivirus software started kicking in. That's when I realized it was
Ah.
running the the daily scans crap. So it started doing that. That was causing it.
Uh,
ASM 1, of course.
dude, time Crisis or House of the Dead. Time Crisis or House of the Dead. I'm a House of the Dead guy. I've always
Yeah.
loved that game. Again, one of those games later on where I would always go to the arcade to
I
play
never
that
really
game.
played either. I
Have
didn't
you ever
play
played
either
it?
of them like that.
Oh, I
Neither.
loved
I
House
know
of the
which games
Dead,
you're
man.
talking about, but neither one were like, they weren't big in my neighborhood. Now, if I had to pick like another, I guess if you're gonna make some comparisons, Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat.
So you want to do that? I'm always been a Street Fighter guy over Mortal Kombat, but I think a lot of people would probably choose Mortal Kombat. But I never got into that game for some
I
reason.
think Street Fighter
But a
is
Street
easier to
Fighter, I
play.
loved. I, it's still hard. I was never a big
Yeah,
fighting game guy, but I would always get my ass kicked. But I still love the
I
game.
like Street Fighter.
Mortal Kombat, like you need the moves. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the movie because they've shown some of the
Yeah.
characters. They look
Oh, I'm
great.
looking forward to Street Fighter because I think it's just going to be wild.
All right. Run me through top five Wolverine covers, regardless of value. Now that's a lot.
I
That's
don't think
harder
it's
because
that
there's a lot of
hard.
great Wolverine covers, and we're not going to
I
talk
don't
about
think because
money.
it says regardless of cover, it's a cover book, so it's not a it doesn't have to be a Wolverine book. So my obviously 81, right? That's got to be there because that's the first 181.
181.
181. I would also put Wolverine 1, both of them. Both.
Yeah, I think Wolverine one to me is the best cover, Wolverine
I
cover.
would
I would
put
put that at
both of
number
them.
one.
I would put the limited series and the ongoing series.
I don't like the ongoing
I
series
like
one.
the
I'm not a
patch
huge
one. I
fan of that
like the
cover.
patch. Obviously I said 340. 340 is you can't top that.
I
Um,
agree.
and there's an X-Men cover, the John Byrne X-Men cover of Wolverine, and it's from I think it's like it's the first time he was it's his first solo issue where he's like the star attraction of the X-Men. I'm trying to remember it, but I would put that one.
What about what about the NES cover,
Oh, you mean
Wolverine?
Wolverine
Uh,
that's Wolverine 14 or 16. The Jim Lee?
I th- is, yeah, the Jim Lee cover. To me, I would
Yeah.
put that up
Oh, the
there.
Punisher cover.
We could talk about the.
Punisher War Journal, issue number 7. The one that he's like with the claws in the Punisher shirt. That's pretty iconic.
I
Oh,
don't
here
remember
it
that.
is.
Why do I not remember that?
I had it here. It's not here. No, it's the one that
To me,
he's like that, but he has Punisher's shirt.
the Wolverine number one by freaking Frank Miller is the best Wolverine cover there ever is. Like it's iconic. I know I yell at people for overpaying for the book because there's a lot of copies out there, but the cover itself, if we're just talking about the covers,
Solid colors.
I don't think it gets much better. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's like it's one of those books where like if you get it in the right colors and it's a beautiful copy, like it's really an amazing cover. It was. I wonder what happened to Frank.
He got older. You
Yeah, I
know,
get it, but I don't think you lose your artistic
but you
ability
know,
when you get that old. I mean, there's a lot of great older
but
artists.
can we say he's phoning it in? Because I see that a lot from people.
I don't know. That's what they say, but I don't know him
I
to
don't know
answer
him.
that
I don't know
question.
him
You
like
know,
that either. But a lot of people, like if you really think about it, a lot of people out there at when they've come to their twilight years, they just don't perform the same way as they used to. I can't think of an iconic Kirby cover that came out in the late '90s before he passed away that everybody like, wow, you know what I mean? Or guys
no,
like
but
that.
as good as Jack was, though, all his shit looks the
Yeah.
same. I hate to say it, but like the
Oh
facial
yeah, I
structures, like
agree.
they all could be swapped out. He's a great artist. Don't get me wrong; he's the best, but nothing stood out like some of the other artists out there of that
Yeah, I
time
agree.
frame.
Neil Adams, when he comes to the latter years, his artwork was deteriorating as well. I think in Frank Miller's case, I think he's just taking it. He's taking advantage of them getting him work. He's getting work. More power to you. I don't
Yeah.
like the covers myself, but
So
he's getting work.
I got, I'm trying to get this guy. There's a lot of arcade guys in the chat tonight, which I love because I'm a big arcade guy. Um, I'm trying to get a friend of the channel who has his own YouTube channel. His name is James Hates Everything. You guys sub him up on YouTube because he's an arcade guy, and I want to get him on the channel and talk about arcade and some of his favorites growing up. And it's going to be a great conversation. We're just trying to figure out when we can both do it. But I'm a big arcade guy, and I don't do enough of it on the channel. So there's a lot of people here tonight talking about some great games. So I think that everybody would
Yeah.
enjoy that.
Yeah, I think so. The Burn Wolverine cover, I think that's 17, but there's also a Jim Lee cover that strikingly very similar in color tones. But yeah, the John Byrne Wolverine cover, I love that cover, but I don't think John Byrne when I see it, if that makes sense, because it doesn't look like a traditional John Byrne cover. Like John Byrne had this way of drawing faces that were very similar to each other, and that cover, though was iconic, it just doesn't feel like John Byrne. It feels like someone else did it. Maybe it was the inker or
Yeah.
something like that that would allow to do more work on it. So I'm thinking that's an inker's work that did that. But it is iconic. I won't take that away.
So Derek says Wolverine 10 is also a great cover too, where Wolverine's battling Sabretooth in the snow. I do think that's a great cover as well. I would highlight the comment, but my mouse is dead or is dying, so
I like that
it's not
cover.
letting
I
me
wouldn't
click on
call
the
it
comment
one of the
anymore.
best covers. If anything, maybe the one of the best Sabretooth covers.
I like the what draws my attention to certain covers is the
Mhm.
coloring as well. And that book is one of those books that where like the coloring is just absolutely perfect on that book. So like it
Yeah.
draws your eye to the characters because of the blue
Mhm.
background, which I love. So I know
Yeah,
what
Derek
Derek is
saying
talking
17
about
is
there.
Burn, 27 is Jim Lee. Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah. 70 Wolverine 79 and then 88. I think I know 88. Which one's 88?
Not sure. Now I gotta look it up. We're old guys.
Uh
We forget numbers.
yeah. Oh Hale says I worked at an arcade when I was 15 till 18 back in 1987 to 1982. Dude, I wish I was you. I would have never left. If I had a job in an arcade, I'd probably still be
To be
working there
that
right
guy
now.
in like in
The pro-
Tron.
yeah. Like I, so I want to go to like a I want to find an arcade in my area and go in there and just film. Like that's what I
Mhm.
want to do. But the problem is there's not many arcades left, right? There's a few here and there, but I have none in my area where I can go to.
Yeah,
None.
it's there's barcades that have been opening in the city, which are pretty cool. So
Yeah, but those are different. Like you can't go in there and film like an actual
yeah.
old school arcade. Like outside of like a Dave and Buster's, like I don't know if anybody knows Dave and
Mhm.
Buster's. I
Oh
know
yeah,
you
we got
probably do
David
because you're in New
Buster's.
York.
So
So
79 is the Broken
like
Claws cover, which I think is a great cover. 88 is the Wolverine Deadpool cover. So I call that a Deadpool cover. The Adam Kubert, the one that he's Deadpool's holding Wolverine like that. Wolverine 8 is also a
so
fun one.
Wolverine 8, I'm gonna say that's the patch cover as well. I
Mhm.
like that cover as well. A cheap book and a great cover. Always
Yeah,
affordable
I
and
have
definitely
that
a
book.
good pickup if anybody likes collecting
I
good
definitely
covers.
have that book. I have 8 with me. I have a nice copy of 8 too. Mhm. So
See, it's weird. It's weird because I've as I gone through my collecting journey, I've kind of moved books in and I move books out consistently if I find books for a good price. And we're all guilty of this. Like if you find a book that's underpriced, you're going to buy it and then like keep it in your collection for a bit and then sell it. Like just because you know you can make money on the book, that's why you buy it. I still do that now. I try to
anybody
find stuff.
anybody want to buy
I
some
was going to
Absolute
make
Batman #1?
yeah, yeah. Don't buy it now. Wait for it to crash. But I will say this, like I was gonna do a video on Spectacular Spider-Man books because you don't know how many like little first appearance villains are in that run. And there's some great art, especially the covers on some of those books. I went to my LCS about a month ago and I picked up a stack of books. I didn't have a few of them that I wanted, but I was able to get some amazing covers with first appearance of
Mhm.
minor villains for like $5
Yeah.
each. As I was like, you know what? I think it would be an interesting video to talk about Spectacular Spider-Man and all the great first appearances that appeared in that run that I think a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know about, but I don't think
Well,
anybody would
this
watch it
no, it
after
has the
me
word
thinking about
Spider-Man.
it.
I think they'll watch it. Spider-Man, the algorithm likes Spider-Man. I will tell you that much. Um, but you're right with the Spider-Man, the secondary books. I think the secondary books are so underappreciated. What's Web of Spider-Man? What's Spectacular Spider-Man? Spectacular and Peter Parker are technically the same book in a weird way. Because it used at one time it was called Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man, then they would call it just Peter Parker, or they'll just call it Spectacular Spider-Man. But those two specifically, they usually are underappreciated, and there's some great stuff in those books. You know what I mean?
So it's funny. O'Hale says the first Tombstone cover. So, but get this, that's actually not his first appearance. His first appearance is in
Mhm.
another issue of Spectacular Spider-Man. That one you're talking about, the white cover with him on the cover, that's his
Yeah.
origin. so it's not his first appearance. But the first appearance is still cheap.
Yeah.
They're all cheap, which is to me, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you should be collecting Spectacular Spider-Man because there's a lot of
Yeah.
great minor first
Yeah, and I
appearances
think
in
that's what
there.
most people do. A lot of people are trying to fulfill ASM run, but I think what ends up happening once they
Yeah,
filled an ASM run, they still have this itch for Spider-Man. So you should move to Spectaculars because Spectacular is the next one that comes in, right? Then it's Web. Web is awesome. I
Web.
love Web. I love the Charles Vest
So
covers.
so do
Those are
I.
great covers.
I grew up reading ASM and Web, right? And then I got into Spectacular Spider-Man later, but Web was one of my favorites
Fun.
to read. Like I always enjoyed the stories they had
Yeah.
there, so
And those
I
and
love that growing up as a kid.
every time I think of Web of Spider-Man, I usually think black suit Spider-Man, the symbiote costume, because
Yeah.
that's when I started collecting it. And there's some really fun covers. Nothing that's really iconic, but there's some really fun covers. You know?
Yeah, and then part of the storyline of Kraven's
Yeah.
Last Hunt, although they spanned all three titles, but like those are some of the best covers that were done during that time
Mike
frame. They
Zeck
were
killed
awesome,
it with
and the
those covers.
storyline is still to this day was what, yeah, and the storyline is still to this day one of my favorites, and I remember
That
reading it
one
as a kid. I
icon
loved
that's
it.
two iconic Mike Zeck covers, the one of Craven holding the mask and then the one of Spider-Man digging off the grave. That's iconic.
The one out of the one out of the grave, I'm hoping they do in Secret Wars. I know it doesn't pertain to um the actual Secret Wars storyline, but if he gets the symbiote, and what I'm hearing is that he's going to get the symbiote after, I think he's going to die in the movie, and then the symbiote's going to revive him, and then you'll see that scene of him coming out in the black
Yeah.
suit, but it won't be, obviously it won't be
Yeah.
from Craven, but still, like, such a great scene. I
Yeah,
would love to
that
see that.
is one of the best covers ever. Like if you want a really cool Spider-Man cover, that's a good Spider-Man cover. I'm also thinking about
Yeah.
the Crane cover that he did where he's on the tombstone in the black costume. That's a nice one as well. That's a
Yes,
great cover.
I agree.
Beautiful, beautiful cover. Crane is amazing in his art style with his painted work. So beautiful stuff. That's a poster right there, and poster, T-shirt, you name it, whatever you want to call it. Magnet, I don't care. I'll put that thing up everywhere and stuff like that.
I'm actually gonna head out in a couple of minutes, only because it's almost 9:30. My wife just got home
My
from
wife is
skiing,
actually on
so
her way home, so
I'm
I'm
gonna
doing the
say
same
hello.
thing, waiting for my wife to come home. And I got to clean up this room, man.
But
I've been remodeling a little bit, so there's some things I've been changing. You can't see it all with the format that you have right here, but
yeah.
I've been doing some remodeling a little bit. Nothing too intense, but a little changes here and there. I love doing little changes here and there.
You need to, because you need to like constantly change up like what's going on the mojo. I do that consistently, man. You got to change shit up just to
Yeah.
kind of make it
Yeah, I
look
usually
fresh,
change the
right?
books and stuff, or I'm gonna end up putting like right now you can't see it from that angle, but I ended up putting some. I got a Marvel logo, and I just ordered a DC logo because I'm not one of those guys. I'm a comic book guy. I'm not a Marvel or DC guy, and I do have a set of the Justice League. They're the new 52 Justice League, that iconic Jim Lee cover, the new 52. I actually have a set of all of them. So that's going to go up there pretty soon once I get that DC logo up. And then this Warlock's going to be moved in the Marvel
Nice.
side. So, but you can't really, it's kind of hard to see it right now. But if you look up there, it's like a fire escape. So I ended up doing like a 3-floor fire escape. And I have a Funko Pop in the top fire escape because I live in the 5th floor. So I put the Funko Pop all the way in the top of the Izzyverse. So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
Very cool.
Someone's asked me to do a room tour.
All right, brother. Well, thanks.
I've been asked to do a room tour, but it's literally this little room. You talk about your room being little. You don't know how small this room is.
So just do it. Do it like a room tour.
Wait, I'll be
Just
like,
man. Who
here's the
gives a
room,
shit?
and we're done.
That's how. But that's how mine. That's how mine is too, dude. It's so small, but if there's a lot of shit in that people might actually
Yeah.
enjoy seeing, that's what in the room doesn't matter. But the crap you have in it is what
Yeah.
people want to
I think
see.
Mike and Dave's were very impressive when I saw their videos. Lunch Money and Dave 35
Yeah.
cents. I love theirs. They did a really good job in their room tours.
Dave has a lot of great stuff in his room.
that's
I
good.
saw that. Mike has a lot of stuff in general. Like
Yeah,
I couldn't
Mike
live
just
with all
got
that.
stuff
He's
that
got a
you
lot
like.
of shit.
What are you doing with that? You got human skulls and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
cool, man.
Well, all right, brother. Thank you for joining me tonight. And again, everybody hanging out in the chat, we really appreciate you guys just blowing off steam, talking about all the stuff that we wanted to talk about tonight. So again, I really appreciate you all. And thank you,
Well,
brother, for joining me
anytime,
tonight.
man.
All right.